Welcome to the Sales with Bob podcast, where we give practical tips and strategies to help sales closers become legends and owners, coaches, and course creators build elite sales teams. Let's go. Hey, what's going on? Welcome to our next episode of Sales with Bob. And as always, I am Bob, and looking forward to jumping into some good stuff today. And if you would be so willing to like and subscribe and share, I would greatly appreciate it so we can get all this great content out to help other people close deals as well. All right. So what we're going to do today is we're going to hit on, it's going to be kind of an overview of my 3C selling method. Now with this is really more getting at the core of what I believe it takes to be good at sales. So it's moving away from a lot of like tactics and sales strategies and things like that. And it's more about at the core of who you are when you're selling and kind of like what your kind of mental kind of focus is, if you will, your mindset kind of going into it. And this is one thing I think that is not taught enough. There's a lot of tactics and strategies that are thrown around there. And again, I don't have an issue with those things, but a lot of times, again, it's just very surface. And the reality is I do believe to be a really good closer, you need to have these 3 C's that I'm going to talk about today to be especially kind of next level. And the reality is for me, if I was going to focus on building someone into an A+ closer, I would take someone that had these 3 C's over someone who knew all the tactics and strategies. If I had to choose someone who knew all the tactics and strategies and someone who had these 3 C's, I would take the 3 C's and teach them the tactics and strategies than the other way around, because I do think that this is harder to learn. And I'm not saying you can't learn these things and you can't implement these things in terms of mindset, but I do think it's harder. Mindset's tougher to work on than just kind of a list of things, tactics, and strategies to do. And again, I think that's where a lot of training that's out there, a lot of coaches that are out there are kind of afraid to kind of get into these things because they are tougher to learn. All right. But again, as I've always said, I'm going to keep it real with you. So let me go ahead and jump in here. And again, this is kind of an overview, but my 3C selling. So basically it's 3 C's. So the first C is being caring, right? Now I know immediately you're probably thinking like, oh, here we go, right? Like light, fluffy. I'm not talking about that. We'll get into that. And I make sure I'll help you understand that. But here's the deal. Ultimately, I believe that it's really, really important to care about the person in front of you on the call. Now, I also understand that a lot of you are probably thinking about other coaches out there who are talking about like, hey, you should be kind of detached, right? Disconnected. And I don't know for sure if there's just a misunderstanding out there about what that means, or if they really mean the way people take it sometimes. But either way, what I see is a lot of people, when they hear this about being disconnected, is they take it as not caring about the person in front of them. It's just like kind of like asking them kind of general questions and not like showing any level of care on the call. And I'm very confident that that's not a good thing. When I talk about being disconnected, you should, I think, be disconnected from like the money, right? The close, those kind of things. You're not focused. You're not looking at like, oh, I'm going to close this person. I'm going to get this money, right? I'm connected instead to the person, which will then lead me to that result. But I am very connected to the person, and that involves being caring. Because there's no doubt that people are going to respond better if you are caring about them than if you are not. All right. It's just pretty straightforward. There might be a few out there who's like, oh no, I just want someone to be straightforward to me and just tell me how it is and cool. Now here's the deal. First of all, you can be completely honest with someone and completely transparent with someone while also still being caring. And I would say that the majority of people are going to prefer to be cared about on a call than just to be throwing some things at them. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. But that is one of the first reasons. I think that ultimately when we come into a call and we actually care about someone, they sense that, they feel that. Like people are smart now, right? So like if I really genuinely care about the person in front of me, they're going to feel that. They're going to sense that. And what's that going to do is that's going to bring down walls. It's going to build trust. It's going to allow me to get into deeper things where we can build the gap a lot easier. I can get into some deeper things, get into the emotion, stuff like that. And that's what's going to happen when I show that I really care about the person. It's going to open up more opportunities on the call. That's going to lead to far more closes. Now, the other thing that caring is going to do, it's going to put the focus on them instead of me. One of the issues that I see with a lot of closers, especially one of my other C's, they're probably a little maybe over on that category, but we'll get to that later. But what can happen is they start maybe teaching too much. And I'm all for, like, I understand there's a consultative approach to sales calls, and there are certain deals where that makes sense. And there are certain deals where it's good to like throw it in there here and there. The problem is on a lot of calls, it becomes more about them and how impressive they are. And like, well, I'm this and I've already done this. And the call becomes more about the closer than it does about the person in front of them. That's not a good thing, right? When you look at your call, you should basically see, especially during discovery, right? Like 90% of it should be them talking. And when you care about a person, that's going to happen naturally because you're focused on them, focused on their needs, understanding them, all those types of things. And so you're naturally going to do that. What it's also going to do is if you care about the person in front of you, there should be a natural sense of empathy. Like there should be the ability to step into their shoes and understand things from their perspective. What that's going to allow you to do is to shape the call in a way that's going to actually make a much greater impact then on them than if you just had like, hey, this is exactly what I'm going to do on the call. And you didn't care about the person, you just cared about following a process. Right, they're going to feel and sense that, and you're just not going to go as far as someone who's caring about the person in front of them. So all those things are super important. And then finally, what I would say is getting to kind of the beginning of what I joked about in terms of being soft and that sort of thing. That's not what caring means. Caring means being honest with people, right? So you can ask my kids, right? So I care about my kids deeply. Like they're a huge motivation for me building the life that I've built so that I can have that flexibility, do things, travel, enjoy life with them. But I have been hard on them, right? I care about them probably more than anyone else. And I definitely have been hard on them throughout their life because I want the best for them, right? So I'm going to ask them the hard questions. I'm going to give them the honest truth when they need to hear it to help them kind of get that next step. So that is the type of caring that I'm talking about. So when you're on a call and you're caring about that person and you're kind of getting them to be honest about some things, you're going to be really honest with them, right? You're going to ask them hard questions. You're going to give them honest assessments, right? And you're going to challenge them, right? If you have a person that you care about that is stuck somewhere, right? Hopefully you care enough to challenge them of like, hey, like if you stay here, like this is not going to be good. You need to do something about this, right? And when that comes from a caring place, generally that's going to be received a lot better. And the people are on the call, they're there for a reason. They already have a sense that they have that need. So you just have to be willing to do that. And part of what can help motivate us to do that is that we actually care about the person in front of us. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. And that caring part is just naturally going to do a lot of the work for you that you need to do on the call. So that's the first C. The second C is that we need to be curious. This ties in, and there's a big focus now, and I agree with it, is that asking good questions is going to help you close deals. And I do agree with that. I think there's a lot to that, asking the right questions in the right way, leaving them open-ended, asking them in a way that can help lead, things like that. All of that is very true. And I think asking good questions is very, very valuable. However, what I would say is I don't think, so if I take a person who memorizes a list of really powerful questions, right? And so they ask those questions versus a person who is curious, right? They care. We already gone through that, but they're just curious. And so they're listening to the person, and then it piques curiosity of like, okay, well, you said that, but like, why that? Or how does that impact this or whatever? And you're naturally just curious. It's leading to more and more questions, into deeper questions. That is going to come across much more natural than just kind of reading off scripted questions. Now, I'm not against having a list of questions. I have no problem with that. I think it's good to look at a list of questions. I think it's good to consistently be looking at lists of questions, see what other kinds of questions people are asking. I think that is a good thing because it begins to internalize some things that maybe we haven't thought about that can be helpful on a call. But that's the thing, is you internalize them, and then on a call they come out more naturally at the right time and in the right way. And that's what the curiosity will do, is it'll help it to happen more naturally, right? So that it's not just kind of some robotic, very disconnected kind of approach, but you're naturally curious. And because the thing is calls will sometimes go in a different direction than you expect. And if it doesn't fit into your script or your list of questions, like, what do you do? Well, if you're curious, you're just going to naturally start to ask those right questions anyways. So I think the more you can learn to become like a detective, if you will, right, and kind of get into some of those questions and help understand, like, what is everything I need to know about the person? Like, who are you? What are you doing for work? What do you make for money? Like, how is that impacting you? How's it impacting your family? How's it impacting the time you're doing? What else do you want to be doing? Like, you're naturally going into questions and hitting that with them. That I think is extremely, extremely helpful. And again, I would rather have someone who's naturally like that and able to ask those questions rather than someone that just has a list of good questions, but is just doing that more, just kind of going down a list, because I think it's going to hit better on the person in front of them. All right. So that's the curiosity part. Then the last one is confidence. So one thing I want to emphasize here is I'm talking about confidence, not cockiness. All right. I can't stand when people are cocky and they're just kind of over the top. And yeah, and I think most people feel that way. So I think most times that's going to be a very big turnoff. I've been on a couple of those calls at times in the past. And just like, honestly, like when I'm in those people, I'm like, I'm all set. I don't care how good this is. I'm not doing it. So that's very, very important. And I think there is a big difference in that. So confidence is, there's kind of an assurance, right? So, and I think there's several different places that you need to be confident. You need to be confident in yourself, right? In your ability, not thinking you're better than anyone else. Like that's the difference. Cockiness is like you're better than people. Confidence is just you're confident in like what you bring to the table, not in comparison to anybody else, right? So that's confidence. And then you need to be confident in the offer. You need to be confident in what it is that you're offering, right? In the fulfillment of that, and that the program is going to fulfill that. And then you need to be confident in the person in front of you and that they can get these results, right? That they have the potential to be able to actually achieve this. Now, with that, this all kind of times together, right? Because here's the deal. If you're not confident and you have limiting beliefs in yourself, guess what? That last one that I talked about in terms of being confident about them and what they accomplish, you're going to carry those limiting beliefs into how you feel about them. And they're going to feel it. They're going to feel both sides of that. And that's not a good thing. So when you get into a call, that confidence, I think, is extremely important because there's a few things that happen. So a lot of times when you're not confident, what ends up happening is basically it makes people feel uneasy. A lot of times it'll make people feel like you are almost like making things up or hiding things or whatever, because that lack of confidence just comes across as very like as sketchy, I guess you could say, in some ways. So that's one thing that can happen where it just feels that way. And then the other thing is just like a sense of, if you have uncertainty about it all and you're giving off that vibe of uncertainty, then how can they be certain, right? How can they move forward if you're not showing a level of certainty? And so that'll happen in calls. Like you'll be like, if you're on there and you don't have a lot of comments and they're asking questions, right? You'll just kind of react in different ways that, because you're not confident, you'll be like, oh, well, yeah, like, I'm not really sure. Yeah. So I think basically, and then you'll just start making stuff up. Whereas like a confident person, when they get hit with a question they don't know, they're just going to be honest. Be like, yeah, you know what? That's a great question. I'm not really sure. We don't get that question very often. I'll definitely be more than happy to kind of check on that. But what I do know is, and then you kind of go into something else and you just move along, right? And that's confidence, right? And it creates a level of comfort in them. Even if you don't ever answer that question, you've created comfort in them because you've just handled it very well. So basically said like, hey, this isn't that big of a deal. We don't get this often. And now let's move on to this next thing. Right. And it's just two different ways of handling it. One's going to make the person feel very uncomfortable. Other one's going to make the person feel very comfortable. All right. And that is what confidence does. Good, healthy confidence makes people feel at peace and at ease. Right. When I'm confident on a call, I'm confident about me and what I have to offer. When I'm confident about, again, the results that we can offer, I'm confident about them and what they can accomplish. They're going to feel and sense that. And that's going to give them reassurance. That's going to give them peace. That's going to make them feel better about everything. And so that is critical. And I see this a lot, again, with a lot of times with newer closers, they'll come in and they might even have some of the other pieces, but they don't have that confidence. And you see it on the call and you just see like the shakiness in everything they're doing. And again, people can be thinking different things. Either there's just like a sense of like, man, this person doesn't seem to even believe in what they're saying, right? Or they seem uncertain, which a lot of times, if they seem uncertain, maybe they're just making stuff up. And so like there's a distrust that's formed. And you don't want that. So you need to work on that confidence. So those are the 3 C's. And I would say with each one of them, there's ways to work on. I think in terms of being caring, in terms of working on it, it's just like you got to decide, are you going to care about people or not? There's not a whole lot to do in terms of work. It's just a choice that you make. It's a mindset that you choose to have going into the call. So I guess it's more of just a matter of like reminding yourself. And then if you have someone that's like looking at calls and stuff, like, how is that coming across? Like, do I come across as I'm being caring, et cetera, et cetera? And then in terms of curiosity, that can just come down to practice. I think repetitions of just getting into, you can even do role plays with people and things like that, and just work on like constantly questioning. And I do think looking at like lists of questions and that can be helpful just to kind of put more of that mindset in here. And then so it will naturally come out. So there's a couple ways that you can work on that. And confidence, I think that's something. So I think in terms of confidence of yourself, that just comes over time. I think in terms of just doing more deals and getting used to that sort of thing. Confidence in the offer is obviously, it's about the offer. Are they getting results? Or are they not getting results? Honestly, if they're not, personally, I wouldn't be on that deal if I were you, unless they're like making some significant efforts to improve it and you trust that that's what's going to happen. I don't think I wouldn't be there if I were you. And then in terms of confidence in them, that's just something you have to deep down believe in, like humanity, in the sense of that everyone has a significant level of potential to reach a higher level of where they are. I believe that. I tend to carry that very heavily. I've always felt that way. A lot of that's my background. I was a social worker back in the day. So I've always just seen the potential in people. So that's just something I carry heavily into a call. So that's just something of you may need to just have this kind of mindset of that. And also, again, kind of the correlation of like, am I confident in me? Because again, I do think carrying those limiting beliefs in about yourself or things like that, that can really impact how you see other people as well. So that's a whole deeper conversation. This is more of an overview, but hopefully that makes sense. But those three things I think are super core. And I think if you work on those things, or you just kind of check your mindset around those three things, you're going to see a significant difference in your ability to close. Now, again, I think pair those things with different tactics and strategies. I talk a lot about the gap and how important that is. So you pair all these things together, that's what gets you to kind of the next level in terms of closing. All right. So go ahead, apply these things to your life. If you have any questions about any of these things, you want something to go deeper on anything, let me know. Please subscribe, like, share, do all that good stuff. I would greatly appreciate it. And again, if I can help in any way, just feel free to reach out to me. All right. Thanks so much and best of luck on those calls.